everyone, Clack the Geek here. I've got a cold, so that's a spanner in the works. Today, I'm going to be doing a video that is absolutely going to go down perfectly with you guys. I'm going to review every Chris Chibnall story up until Legend of the Sea Devils.
Funny.
Yeah, I'm probably going to get killed for this video, but ah well. So yeah, because The Power of the Doctor, the Centenary Special... Oh, that's so weird calling it The Power of the Doctor. Anyway, Jodie's final story is upon us in like a few weeks' time, so I'm going to give my updated opinions on every Chibnall era story, because obviously I reviewed them when they all came out on broadcast, but obviously opinions change, and oftentimes I was very generous because, you know, it's in the hype of a new story. The lowest I think I ever gave them on their initial broadcast was like a 6 out of 10. If I ever give something a 6 on initial broadcast, you know I don't like it, but that's a sign. But yeah, it's just going to be like quick fire, Woman Fell to Earth, Ghost Woman, just quick fire opinions on each Chibnall story. So let's get to it. Oh yeah, and it's just my opinion, just in case I didn't make that extra clear.
Funny.
The Woman Fell to Earth, Jodie's first story, and it is fine. It's a perfectly fine series opener and post-regen story. It sets up the new Doctor, you know, adequately. Jodie does a good job, and I love the speech about family at the end. I love that speech. That's a great speech from the Doctor. And there's some good moments and whatnot, although the comedy is utterly dreadful. Like, a part of me dies inside with some of the terrible jokes. I mean, jokes in quotation marks, that is. The characters and companions are set up decently. Tim Shaw is an okay villain for an opener. He didn't need to come back for the finale, but we'll get to that. But yeah, it looks very nice, although I don't really like the whole ITV drama. I don't know. It doesn't quite feel right for Doctor Who. I've never really gelled with that, but, you know, that's just my personal preference. Overall, it's a fine story. It's a really bog-standard Doctor Who story, and yeah, it's fine. 6.5 out of 10. I don't really feel much to it. Episode 2, The Ghost Monument, another one that is perfectly fine, but there are some great things here. It looks gorgeous. It looks genuinely stunning. That opening 10-minute sequence of the spaceship crash was fantastically done in terms of filmmaking and tension and excitement. Great stuff. I like the fact that the TARDIS doesn't appear till this episode, the new one, so it makes it more significant. And I like the concept of this space race. I think it's a really cool kind of Terry Nation, Keys and Marinus-esque kind of idea. But overall, though, aside from the opening 10 minutes and the final TARDIS scene, a lot of it's just kind of meandering about. Like, yeah, it's not a lot happens, really. And it's a lot of show, don't tell, and they don't really maximise their potential with this great concept. So again, 6.5 out of 10, one I used to like a lot more than I do now. Episode 3, Rosa, and I like this one. I think it's got a couple of big flaws, but overall, I really appreciate what this episode does. It sets out, obviously, to tell the Rosa Parks story with Doctor Who, and I love how immersive the historical setting of 1950s Alabama is. It's very, you know, dangerous for the companions, especially you've got Ryan and Yaz, you know, companions of colour. It makes history feel very dangerous, and it shows the, you know, the nasty side of history. Now, I think that's very interesting to explore. And just how immersive it is with the costumes and the sets and the music and the production. It just immerses you in the time period, in my opinion at least. There's some great stuff with the characters. The actor who plays Rosa Parks is fantastic. And the ending scene is excellent, apart from one element, which I'll get onto. But my main two issues are Krasko, the villain. He's so one note. He's just so one note. He's such a crap villain. And this story, I think, could have been a pure historical. And 2, the pop song at the end, in the ending scene, kind of cheapens the scene. You don't need that. It takes me out of it. So overall, I think you could have made this a pure historical, to be honest. I don't think you need Krasko. But yeah, overall, I'll give it a 7 out of 10. I really admire what it does, but a couple of flaws though. Episode 4, Arachnids in the UK, absolute garbage. I hate this one so much. It's so generic and basic. You know, spiders going evil with toxic waste and stuff. It's dreadful. Dreadful political messaging, especially with the Jack Robertson Trump knockoff. It's not remotely subtle. Dreadful dialogue, really dodgy morals from the Doctor. Yeah, don't shoot the spiders, let them suffocate. Yeah, great work there, folks. It's really meandering. I forgot half of what happens. And the only thing I actually like is the Graham stuff and how he's grieving over Grace. I think those scenes are quite good. Apart from that, this story can get lost. 2 out of 10. Now we have the Saranga Conundrum, the most boring Doctor Who story I've ever seen. The one that I genuinely on rewatch cannot get through all the way through. And it's probably my second least favourite story behind Hellbent. Hellbent angers me, but this just bores me to tears. It is just so dull. And it's an awful episode. The worst Doctor Who monster. dreadful dialogue, a really weak, cringy performance from so many of the cast, just spouting techno-babble dialogue for 50 minutes. Even the production of it, like the blank white corridors, it's just boring. It's not even a fun, bad episode that you can rip apart for days. It's just you get nothing from this experience. 1 out of 10. Demons of the Punjab next. I think one of the absolute highlights of this era. This is a really powerful one, I think, and just it's one of the few times in the Chibnall era where the political, social messaging and commentary has felt genuine. You know, it's tackling the partition of India, and it's a historical event that is rarely talked about. It's not taught in schools, really. It's quite a dark period of history, especially looking at it from, you know, British eyes, and I think it's just interesting to inform people about this event that, you know, impacted so many people. I think it's interesting, and it feels very personal to the writer Vinay Patel, whose family this affected. I think there are certain moments, like especially with Yaz's gran, which I think he's said that he kind of cribbed parts of his own life and his experiences and kind of put them in there and wove them in. I think it just feels so much more personal and genuine and powerful because of that. You've also got some excellent production and sound design, some great performances, especially from Jodie with that love speech. I think was very well done. All the characters are really, really great, and you really feel sympathy for them. The Thajarians, I think, are really cool monsters, and I like the fact they're not the villains. And a lot of people said you can take them out and you don't need them there. I think you do, just because of how they do impact the story. And their goal to, you know, honour those who, obviously they're near extinction, so they're going to honour the people who die alone. And I just think that's a really quite powerful and quite resonant, and it's quite bleak at points, but overall I think it's fantastic. I'll give it a 9 out of 10. Kablam's probably my favourite from Series 11. Well, I just find it really enjoyable. I love the world building, I love the whole kind of space Amazon and how darkly comic it is. It's very jolly, but this sinister undertone, I really love that. The robots are really creepy. It's like, you know, Doctor Who's bread and butter, it's bread and butter with Doctor, you know, creepy robots and whatnot. There's some really inventive concepts with the killer bubble wrap, that's really fun. That's a bit dark, but some great, you know, little characters, especially Lee Mack's character, Dan, he's really fun. And, you know, the other characters are quite delightful and quite memorable. I really like them. The ending is quite iffy, I think. It's not as black and white as some people think, in my opinion, but it's definitely flawed. But I think that's maybe a discussion for another time. But overall, despite its odd, you know, big flaw and whatnot, I think overall it's just really fun, you know, stuff like the conveyor belt sequence or just the action. It's just a really fun Doctor Who story, in my opinion. 9 out of 10 for me. The Witchfinders is a story that exists, and it's really boring, with a boring as hell Doctor Who monster, with a mud monster, and it's just such a generic, formulaic Doctor Who historical. There's barely anything that I like about it. I mean, there's the odd good character like that girl, Willa, I think she was alright. Spooky atmosphere, cool. Cool putting a female doctor in this historical setting with witch trials, but they don't do much with it. It's just boring. I mean, Alan Cumming's in it, cool, but if I'm going to watch Alan Cumming, I'm just going to watch GoldenEye. It's 1,000 times better. 4 out of 10, yeah. I've never liked It Takes You Away more than on this recent rewatch. I really got more out of this than ever before. It's not perfect. It's a bit of a structural mess, in my opinion. The direction isn't great. There's a lot of exposition and like just talky bits and just a bit boring. And yeah, structurally it is very messy and whatnot, and the humour isn't great. But I really liked how creative and weird it was. I just appreciated that. And even if it doesn't work entirely, I'm willing to go with this one more than a lot of Series 11 because it tries to do something unique and different, and I really appreciate that. I mean, the stuff with the mirror universe and like going to the mirror and the anti-zone with these creatures and ribbons and and, you know, obviously, like, in the mirror universe, you can see your loved ones. It works well for Graham's arc and this whole idea of, you know, grieving and getting over the loss of Grace and all that stuff. It's really quite interesting, and it's kind of like these high-concept science fiction ideas intertwined with a very personal story. I love that kind of storytelling, and honestly, I don't hate the talking frog in the chair. The off-putting lips, like the Shandy Clark's voice and the lips, they don't match at all, and that's really off-putting. But you know what? I could kind of roll with it now. I don't know what's happening to me, but I can kind of roll with the talking frog in the chair. I mean, it's weird, but, you know, props for trying. Doctor Who is a campy show. Props for doing something out there, you know. I respect that. 7 out of 10. Battle of Ranskoor, of course. This finale sucks. In fact, apparently it was a first draft from Chibnall. That kind of says all you need to know. But yeah, it's a dreadful finale. It's such a generic episode. It does not feel like a finale remotely. It just accentuates how Series 11 not having any like kind of arc just didn't do it any favours. It just doesn't work. It tries to do the big end of the universe thing. It's not earned. Tim Shaw is a crap villain for a series finale. It's so dull and forgettable. Wasted actors. Wasted concepts. It's just naff. 3 out of 10. Okay, now the New Year's Day special resolution, which I did do a proper review for, kind of like retrospectively, in the early this year actually, so go check that out for more details. And it is, my opinion still stands, a great Dalek story, great portrayal of the Daleks, something fresh for them. Charlotte Ritchie from Ghost is in this, and she's awesome. Tozin Cole's best performance, excellent music, great action, a great blockbuster story for New Year's Day, and the best Dalek special, 8 out of 10. Now we move on to Series 12 with SPYFALL Parts 1 and 2. Part 1 I think is the better part of this story. I prefer it. I just love the kind of Bond homages. I would think they could have gone further, and now that I'm a Bond fan, now I think, you know, they could have gone a bit further with it, but still, it's really fun, it's action-packed, I like the globe-trotting, I just love how entertaining it is, that kind of cheesy Doctor Who fun. It's really great action and whatnot. Even without the incredible cliffhanger with the master reveal, even without that, I still enjoy the story. I like Daniel Barton, I love the Kasavin, I love the ideas of, like, you know, the technology, kind of medieval. That's kind of cool. Second part, though, I do think does drop the ball in some regards. I think some resolutions are kind of a bit too timey-wimey and a bit of cop-out, but overall, I'll give it an 8 out of 10. Really enjoy this one. Oh yeah, Gallifrey was in the story. I remember when everyone was talking about that. Also, part 2, that problematic scene is still problematic. You know what I mean? Orphan 55 is a terrible episode of Doctor Who, and it's not even fun. I always, if I ever want to rewatch this one, I will always go in the mindset of, okay, look, it's bad, but just have fun with it in a so bad it's good way. I can't. I genuinely can't. It is so bad. Awful story. Awful, insincere climate message. Dreadful cast of characters and wasted actors like James Buckner from The Inbetweeners. You don't waste Jay from The Inbetweeners and put me in a green wig. Stupid costumes. A dreadful pace to the story. Dreadful production. Like the CGI on the dregs is awful. The dregs aren't particularly scary, to be honest. There's even a bit where like there's like dubbing over the Doctor, even though when her mouth is moving, she's not speaking. That is just, I mean, if that doesn't scream tacky, I don't know what does. And I know, you know, TV production takes time, but still, it just, poor. The only thing I like is Benny, because 1, the memes are cool, and 2, he's actually quite a genuine character, you know, he's quite likeable, but yeah, that's it. Like, there are other scenes that are kind of so bad it's good, but genuinely, I can't find anything else good about this one. It's just awful, and I don't enjoy it as well. 1 out of 10. This episode, it's not very good.
That's putting it mildly, 00.
Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror, an okay historical. I remember at the time people actually quite liking this one, and for me, I mean, it's okay, it's fine. The actor who plays Nikola Tesla is excellent, I think, and I like the, you know, the historical setting of, you know, how the, you know, production and whatnot. And I think, you know, this, like, Nikola Tesla with that green alien ball thing, that's kind of cool, and I really like him and Jodie's dynamic, that's great. But the Skithra are a dreadful monster. They're just a B-Tech Arachnos. They did not need to be in the story. You could have made it a pure historical, or have it about, you know, Nikola Tesla and Thomas Edison trying to fight over who gets to keep the green alien ball thing. Like, you know, it's just it's just a decent, formulaic Doctor Who story, elevated by other members of the cast and some other good elements. So, 6 out of 10, it's fine. It's just fine. Fugitive of the Judoon is a really interesting one to look back on in retrospect, because everybody was hyped as hell when this one came out. Everyone was like, oh my god, this is amazing! And I loved it too when it came out, but over time I've seen, you know, his weaknesses and how, yeah, it's just quite it is very much franchise maintenance, and it's just kind of there for the sake of the series arc. It is, yeah, but to be honest though, I do have fun with it. It's a bit like fast food. It doesn't really do you much good in the long run, but it tastes nice in the moment. It is a fun romp, you know. I enjoy the Judoon. I love Jo Martin's Doctor, she's great. I do love the whole kind of RTD feel to it. It's just enjoyable. Like 7 out of 10. I'm a bit warm. I do have a soft spot for this one, even if it is just nostalgia bait. You know, you've got Captain Jack coming back for no reason. Like, it's nostalgia bait, but you know what? It's fun, in my opinion anyway. PRAXEUS has some things that I do like about it. The creature makeup with the PRAXEUS disease thing, that's really grim. The look of the episode, it looks really nice with the different locations and the cinematography and the lighting and all that. Looks really good. And although it's the third time in a row in this era that a climate change, pollution issue is talked about in Doctor Who, in this era anyway, I think the fact that it covers microplastics, which is something not as commonly talked about, I think that makes it worthwhile in this instance. But the fact that it was the third one in a row to talk about a climate issue, it's a bit repetitive after a while. But yeah, overall, I hate the Doctor's technobabble dialogue constantly in this story. It really did stand out here. The villain is trash, boring. It's just a really dull episode with some good elements, but yeah, it's just really dull, and it really went off the rails near the end. Like, it's just boring. 5 out of 10. Oh, and that blogger woman character, she drove me up the wall. Is that how people see YouTubers? Is that really how they see us? I genuinely love Can You Hear Me? Even after like nearly 3 years, I still love it. And I think, honestly, rewatching it recently, I've gained more appreciation and more kind of understanding of what the episode kind of goes for, and I just really appreciate what it does. I mean, I love the tone, I love the cosmic sci-fi and gothic horror. It's great. It almost feels like a bit kind of 70s kind of horror, it's gothic and whatnot, but there's an era of camp, especially with the villains. Like, they are fantastic. Zelen is a fantastic villain, and the other one, I can't remember her name, but she's not quite as good, but I still really liked her. And there's just so many. It covers the theme of like mental health and whatnot, and like anxieties and whatnot. But I think it's done in a really interesting way with a lot of imagery, like the fingers in your ears, the 2 planets, the way that at the end the Doctor does, like, Sonic saves the day, but just traps them in the bubble in between the 2 planets. I think that's like an interesting metaphor for how your inner demons, because that's what the gods represent, your inner demons and fears and anxieties. You can never fully destroy them, but you can control them, especially if you're with people like the Doctor is with the fam and whatnot. And I think the episode isn't directly trying to say that. I think you can just infer these things from imagery and, breaking down the typical Doctor Who story, and it infers meaning. Yeah, great. Even the title, Can You Hear Me, could be like interpreted. It's not trying to be I said not overt, but it's telling it in a clever way, conveying its message in a clever way. Top-notch performances as well. Taz Cole, I think, is very good in this one, and I love the stuff with his friend. Yaz's stuff was probably the best of the episode. It was genuinely, truly fantastic, and whilst it's flawed, I don't entirely hate the ending with Graham. I don't entirely hate that. I think that, again, it's not quite as black and white as, the Doctor being ignorant. Again, it's flawed, but I don't think it's quite as black and white as that. But again, that's a subject for another time. Anyway, yeah, 9 out of 10. One of my favourites of this era. Maybe my favourite from Series 12, or the next one might be. I don't know. But I love this one, basically. The Haunting of Villa Diodati is my other favourite from Series 12. I think the Doctor is fantastic here. Jodie's best from Series 12 in terms of performance. I love the gothic horror atmosphere of the haunted house. It's great. The historical celebrities like Mary Shelley, Lord Byron, etc. They are so well characterised as people, and I love how they, exposition is about them is kind of exchanged and delivered through just dialogue and gossip, and it just makes it feel more natural than just the Doctor stating their Wikipedia page like so many other historicals can be guilty of. Ashad the Lone Cyberman is fantastic in this story. He's brutal, he's really creepy. How it links to the whole, being inspired by Frankenstein, it's really well linked in that regard. The way that, they're just the links with Mary Shelley and Frankenstein and the Lone Cyberman, it's fantastically done. It's brutal. It's dark, it's just fantastic. 9 out of 10. Right, finale time. Essentially the Cybermen Timeless Children. Don't really like this one, to be honest. It's just a bit boring, honestly. I mean, Essentially the Cybermen, it's so... you've got the whole thing with the Cyber War plot, which is fine. It's a bit generic, though, honestly. There's some good action in the first bit, but honestly, it's just kind of them wandering about space and just kind of... It's honestly a bit aimless now I think about it. They don't really do an awful lot. Dialogue... very bad at points. Now that I look back, I can really notice the poor dialogue. And then it's intercut with the whole Brendan stuff, which obviously now we know is meant to be a metaphor for the Timeless Children and whatnot, but it's so weird and out of place. It just makes no sense why these two are together. And to be honest, I don't really enjoy either of them. And then you got the Timeless Children with the Master and the Time Lords and the Cybermen, and they're on Gallifrey, and the Timeless Child reveal. I still do not like that at all. I've got reasons for that, but yeah, I still just do not like that reveal. But also just, it's boring. It is just boring. It's just like exposition dumps, and there's just things that nothing ever happens. For what's meant to be such a monumental episode, it feels so insignificant and just meandering. What the hell? 4 out of 10. Revolution of the Daleks. I remember when it was broadcast, I was kind of disappointed, but I was almost in denial. Like, I just kind of said it was an 8 out of 10. Great. Rewatching it, I mean, there's some good elements. I do really like Ryan and Graham's exit. I like how, kind of a bit different it is and more subdued than just them choosing to leave. I like it in the context of the episode. In the wider context of the series, doesn't quite work because I think they need to be developed more, but still, it's a nice moment. And there's not... Ryan's pretty good in this one. I like him. Some fun action at times, but it's just like you've got so many different plot lines. You've got the whole political satire with the the Daleks and the working with the governments and whatnot. You've got Jack Robertson there for some bloody reason. You've got the Doctor in prison, Captain Jack's there, Dalek Civil War. There's just so many different things, and it's just it doesn't come together as a satisfying whole. But there's nice moments though here and there. So 6 out of 10, yeah, it's alright, I guess. Okay, now we're starting Flux, which is my favourite of this area, which means that we've got more positivity. Yay! Keep it positive. Anyway, Halloween Apocalypse. It's very messy, this story is. Very disconnected. Like, it's an unconventional series opener. It's the start of a serial, so it's obviously, trying to set up all these different plot points for the future of Flux. And it's very messy, and even on broadcast there were certain things that I found quite boring, like Vinder's stuff. The Joseph Williamson stuff I found quite boring. The dialogue and the humour I found quite cringy at points as well. But you know what? I do enjoy a lot of the stuff, like especially with Dan and Carvanista. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the Weeping Angel scene, the Sontaran bit. Amazing music, and it just felt quite exciting at points. So it's very messy. It's very messy and doesn't fully hold up on repeat viewings, but 6 out of 10 and a high 6 out of 10 as well. It is entertaining at least. Now we have my favourite of the era, War of the Sontarans. I adore this one. I can't tell you how much fun I had with this one. It put a massive stupid grin on my face. It made me excited for the week ahead. It made me excited to get up Monday morning. That's just great. Like, it put me in such a good mood, I can't say it. The Doctor was on fire in this episode. The Sontarans depicted fantastically, one of their best depictions in the entire show. The whole battles, the action and whatnot was fantastic. The humour with Dan beating up sometimes with the frying pan, pitch perfect. The whole Crimean War stuff, it can link thematically with the Sontarans, desire for war. I think there's some really interesting things with that. Even the stuff with Yaz and Vinder on the planet Time and with the Maury and all that stuff, I thought was really cool. I loved everything about this episode pretty much. I mean, there was a few nitpicks I had, but you know what? 9.5 out of 10. I loved this one, and I still do. I still rewatch it just on its own. It's just a delight to watch every single time. Next up, Once Upon a Time. Again, another banger that really put me in a good mood again with Flux, and I just loved how creative it was with how it kind of explored our characters, but through the whole dream sequence. It was very experimental and very weird, but I loved the creativity of it all. I loved how you got to see the Doctor's past with the Fugitive Doctor, but it was kind of you recasting, with the main four, with Doctor, Yaz, Dan, Vinder. And as well as that, in other character stories like Vinder, Yaz was there in place of another character, and in Yaz's stuff, the Doctor was there in place of it. I just thought it was really creative to do that, but also explored these characters as well, especially Dan. I loved his stuff as well. And Vinder, this episode is what really made me start to care for Vinder. I also enjoyed Belle's story, although again, structurally, it was a bit messy in that regard. Like, why was that fast? Yeah, Flux's structural priorities are a bit weird, but overall, this story, I loved it. I loved how creative it was. 8 out of 10. Village of the Angels, again, another banger in this series. Like, oh man, the Angels are so well done. I like the mythos added to them. Some amazing side characters like Claire and Jericho. Jericho is my favourite side character of Flux. Some really weird imagery that was really cool. Here's something that this episode and also Once Upon a Time did, but they really add to the Division, this idea of what the Division are. Really interesting, and it really made me interested as a viewer when these were broadcasting. It really made me interested in the division. Yeah, some great horror, great humour at points, like some really kind of dark humour, like the angels ringing the doorbell. It's really sinister. The other subplots, I think the one with Yaz, Dan and Peggy in the 1901 was a bit, probably the weaker part of the episode, but I actually quite like the stuff with Belle and Blake Harrison. Even though it was a bit structurally a bit odd, but you know what? I really liked it. The cliffhanger was stellar. It was just fantastic. I just don't think it's quite perfect. So 9 out of 10, but this is fantastic in my opinion. You know, honestly, I was on a bit of a high with talking about, episodes I loved in this era, but now we've got to bring it back down to the crap with Survivors of the Flux. This episode's trash. It really is. It's the worst of Flux, and it is really what caused its downfall, in my opinion. It just, nothing in this episode either had any relevance to the actual plot, or just piled more stuff on that you didn't need. Like, the unit stuff was fun, but you really didn't need it. You needed to just cut that, because Flux was overcrowded enough as it was. Don't need that. The Grand Serpent was kind of cool, but again, like, it was just wasted. Like, why is he with Unit? I thought he was Vin's arch enemy. What's going on? The stuff with the Doctor and Tectoune I found really boring, not remotely interesting. Yaz, Dan and Jericho's, like, Indiana Jones quest kind of stuff was kind of cool, but when you watch it back and, like, it was just for a joke with Carvanista about, I can't do time travel, suddenly it just becomes really pointless. Like, what's the point in it all? It is just filler. Complete filler. It doesn't advance the story or the characters in any way. It is just crap. 3 out of 10. Now, I'll be honest, I'm a bit of an apologist when it comes to the Vanquishers, just because I think a lot of the problems that Flux has were to do with Survivors of the Flux. So I feel a bit sorry for the story. And the fact that it manages to tie a lot of things up, I think, it is admirable how much it does. I think there are some things that are handled quite well. The way the Flux is dispatched of with the passenger form, I think is very satisfying for me. And there's certain things that aren't, like Swan Azure's death is really stupid. The whole thing with the universe, like being how is the universe intact? There is a line that does it kind of explain it away, but it needs to be conveyed a lot better and a lot clearer, I think. But it's kind of there. I kind of take that as, okay, it's fine, yeah, whatever. I just love seeing all these characters, like, all these various characters from different times, just battling out this Sontarans and Daleks and Cybermen. And then the visuals are phenomenal in this episode. It was just such an epic story that I just had a lot of fun with. Like, 7 out of 10. A bit of a guilty pleasure, honestly. I'll be honest, it's a bit of a guilty pleasure. Also, I've been to the Liverpool docks where they filmed the end of the story, so yay! I do have a soft spot for Eve of the Daleks. I find it a very nice, chilled out episode after the bonkersness of Flux. And also, I just found it quite unwinding and just a nice, chill episode. I quite liked it. I like the Daleks. People are starting to complain about plot armour when this story is broadcast. Oh, yeah, that was a thing. Anyway, yeah, Daleks were quite fun. I like the humour with them. That was great. Aislinn B as Sarah, I find really funny. Like, she's just so manic, and I just find it really amusing. Nick was strange, to put it mildly, though. There were some weird things with his character. I enjoyed the main trio, and although I'm not entirely on board with Phasmin, I think the way it's kind of in this episode, I do actually quite like it. I think it's quite good. But overall, it's a fairly standard episode, but it's a nice chilled one, so 7 out of 10. I like it. And finally, Legend of the Sea Devils. When this was broadcast, there was a repeat of The Lion King just before it, and the last 5 minutes of that I caught, and it was infinitely times better than this steaming pile of crap. This is just, I've never felt so deflated after an episode of Doctor Who before. It wastes an iconic villain, the Phasmin stuff I think is really poorly handled, it looks really naff, the characters are dull, the sets are dull, it's just dull. It's so generic, and it was this episode that kind of just made me realise I just want this series to be over and done with, which it will soon. But yeah, 3 out of 10. It's crap. It really is. I didn't even like it when it was broadcast. Like, what a downer to end on. And yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching. That's all the Jodie stories reviewed right now, my current opinions of them. It's really just kind of for reference of, what I think of them all now that the year is coming to a close. I might put a ranking in the description of the comments, but yeah, what do you think of any of these stories? Let me know any opinions and all that in the comments below, in a respectful manner. And this is Clack the Geek signing out. Bye everyone.